All right, Christopher, was waiting on you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so we can get started. The time is now 2:02. I'd like to call the Special Community Development Committee to order. And as customary, could we have someone to volunteer to do an invocation? Unless I have to draft someone.
I'll volunteer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let us bow our heads for just a moment and ask for God's blessings and be thankful for all the blessings that He has given us as a city. We ask that He help us steward and marshal and take care of His many blessings that He's given us here in Charleston for our future and for our children's future as well. All these things in the name of God Almighty, I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
We move right along with public participation. We have anyone present for public participation? We have some people online that I think came in, one or two.
Nope, we don't have anybody signed up. We just had the one public comment that I sent you all.
Just that one. All righty. So I think everyone have received that particular one. And I think that was from Mr. Bryant. That was correct?
That is correct.
Correct. Thank you. So we move on to no old business. We move right on down to new business. And the first item is the ordinance to amend Chapter 54 of the Code of the City of Charleston zoning ordinance by revising Section 52-220 pertaining to conference space requirements and accommodation overlay zone in the peninsula portion of the city. And I think it's on you, Christopher.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to you and all the members of the committee for taking time out of your busy day and setting up this special discussion, because we really appreciate it. We've got a item of kind of a little bit of urgency that's behind this, and that is that Mr. Palacios is working on a new hotel in West Ashley. And this is not the hotel that a lot of you all might have heard from, that is a bigger one on an former auto dealership lot fronting on Savannah Highway. That's coming later, but he is right now working on a smaller kind of new generation hotel to the rear of that at Dulce in Orleans. That is what they call a true hotel. It's in the Hilton chain, I believe, and it is in line with a lot of these types of hotels that we're seeing in suburban areas that have, you know, very nice rooms and amenities, but they don't have meeting space or restaurants or things like that. And so Mr. Palacios last built a hotel in the city that it was the Hilton home. Eric Coleman can help me with the name of
Home 2 Suites.
Home 2 Suites. Thank you, Eric. Of course, we did not have this requirement then, but that was the most recent hotel built in the city, and it was also built by Mr. Palacios, and it did not have meeting space. But we passed an amendment to our accommodations ordinance in the time after that said that any hotel that's built in the city needs to have a certain amount of meeting space. And the reality that we are finding in our research and learning about suburban hotels is that most suburban hotels these days don't provide meeting space. They're more budget conscious. They're more kind of create a nice room, a nice welcoming environment, have free breakfast, whatever it might be, but you don't necessarily provide the meeting space. And that typically goes with the hotels downtown. And so we had suggested the amendment because first it was brought to light by Mr. Palacios' situation over there, but we realized that as we researched suburban hotels that really most were not providing meeting space anyway. And this ordinance amendment would not prohibit them from providing meeting space. It would just not require it. And that's why it's kind of worded in a little bit of an odd way. It's saying, it seems like it's related to the peninsula, when in fact, what it's saying is peninsula hotels would still be required to require meeting space as the ordinance already says, but all our suburban areas would not be required to have meeting space. And that's pretty much the extent of the amendment. And, you know, from our standpoint, we were very supportive of that based on our research. And this did go to the Planning Commission, and they were very supportive of it as well. And, you know, obviously it's coming through community development and then on to full council. That's kind of the situation we're in, and we would love to answer any questions you might have. Eric Pullman, of course, our West Ashley coordinator, is here and can also help with answers to those questions.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move approval, and then we can continue on to the discussions. I want to thank staff.
Okay.
Thank staff for pivoting and being flexible on this. I really do.
It was moved in second. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I certainly get the concept of what we're trying to accomplish here, and I support it. I do want to ask a question as to, is there some relationship to the number of rooms in a hotel, either proposed here or in the future? So, and in fact, Christopher, your example, not the hotel that Mr. Plassis is planning on Savannah Highway, but this is another smaller location. And I'm sure the market would dictate, and Mr. Plassis would want to have meeting space in that bigger hotel that's on Savannah Highway. I think that's his intent, but I'm just asking the question to say, gee, if you get above a certain number of rooms, no matter where they are, should we still consider leaving a requirement for some meeting space? How many rooms, just out of curiosity, are planned for this smaller hotel? I think it's on Orleans Road.
Correct. And Eric, it's 140, is that it, Eric?
100, currently it's 127 rooms, which is really about the minimum threshold for a suburban hotel anymore for cost of construction and land cost in the area, which just doing the quick mathematic according to the ordinance would mean that this 127 room would require a 5,000 square foot conference space.
And how many rooms is he planning on the bigger site at Savannah Highway?
Much more.
Much more.
Much more. The number has not been set yet, but it is a much larger facility that he is anticipating having some very large competitive conference space for the region.
Well, like I said, I knew that would be his intent, and in a way, the market will help dictate that. But, 10 years from now, somebody's replacing a hotel or doing a new one, and you got the larger number of rooms. I just question whether, from a policy point of view, whether it's good at some level to still have that requirement in place.
Mayor, is that a question to staff, or is that your?
It's kind of an observation, I guess. It's kind of if staff saw that anyplace else, or I'd be interested to know.
I would say that our research has shown that typically the suburban hotels are typically lower than, say, 200 rooms or so. They're 150, 175, 125, that are getting built. So I mean, if there was a threshold that was higher than that, for a conference type hotel, because I do think, Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that Mr. Palacios had talked about at least 200 rooms at the bigger hotel, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, I just can't remember the exact number, so I don't want to toss any out.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, to me, that might be a threshold if we were going to have a threshold in there for triggering a conference room requirement. Because that is a different type of hotel then sometimes when you get above 200 rooms, it seems like. And most of what we've got in Charleston in our suburban areas is below 200. I don't know that we've got one above 200 in our suburban areas. North Charleston does, but I don't know if we do. Yeah.
Did we allow for some hotel rooms at Citadel Mall with their PUD? I can't remember.
We did. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So that's a case where if they were going to build, one rather than two small ones, and it was big enough, you would want them to have some meeting space there, I would think, just a thought. Well,
just for clarification.
Councilman Gregory?
just for clarification and understanding the amendment, right now, there would be no threshold. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So they won't be required to, but based upon their business model, blah, 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 blah,
Right.
they would be able to do it, correct?
Yeah, nothing's stopping them.
Nothing would be stopping them.
Yeah.
But if we put the threshold in there, say anything 100 rooms have to have meeting space, I think that's where what you're talking about, right, Mayor?
Yeah, like if it was over 150 or 200.
Right.
Well,
It would be a requirement as opposed to an option.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
I got you.
let's pass this. I'm in favor of it, but let's just drill down maybe on that question by the time it comes to council. If we want to put some higher threshold in there, if y'all seem to think that's a good idea, we could do it then.
Okay.
Well, any other questions? Councilman Pell, Councilmember Sacrum? Okay, no.
This all sounds good.
Okay, Councilman Waring?
I'm good.
You're good? Okay. Well, the motion is on the floor. All in favor, vote by saying aye, and we'll come back and look at the threshold so far as rooms over 150 or whatever the case may be, but we'll approve this and we'll come back and take a look at that. All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers? Nay. Ayes have it. Now we'll move on to item I2, which is a presentation of affordable housing and workforce housing at the Point Hope Development Berry Company and Prosperity Builders. And I think it's Tammy's going to be doing the presentation on this, I believe.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Mitchell, both Tammy Wilson and Tony Berry are on the Zoom with us this afternoon. Before they speak about Point Hope, I wanted to remind members of the City Committee of City Council of their work to build Bermuda Point, which is West Ashley off of Highway 61. So those are 40 townhome style units that will be available before the year is out. I was staring at Tony, he's nodding at me. That effort was undertaken in part with with a partnership with the Charleston Redevelopment Corporation. City of Charleston provided funding to that organization to help facilitate housing. And there was a loan provided to Tony Berry and Tammy Wilson through their partnership to build some additional units. So wanted you to be aware that we have a history with them. Pleased to have them as part of the partnership. And today they want to discuss the Point Hope development that they're engaged in. And Tammy, I don't know if you or Tony are starting first, so I'll defer the floor to you all. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Gianna. It's a pleasure to be here. Tony, I'll defer to you to take the lead on the information we want to share with the committee today. And we appreciate you all allowing us to tell you a little bit about our work.
Okay, great. Yes, thanks everybody for including us in your meeting today. Gianna has the PowerPoint we put together. Has that been shared with the committee?
It has not. Patrick, do we have that?
I don't have the presentation, but I have the slide deck. Let me see, 1 second.
Okay.
And if not, I've got it. I can share my screen if that's helpful.
Yeah, you're more than welcome to. If that's easier for you, I would, so that way you can just advance as you need it.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
So let's see if this. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
We can.
Okay, great. Okay. Well, first of all, again, thanks for your time. My name is Tony Berry. I'm a principal with a development company based out of Mount Pleasant called TBC Development. And with me is Tammy Wilson, who I've known since the late 70s, early 80s. Tammy and I are both from Lancaster, South Carolina, and actually went to high school together. I tell everybody I'm older than Tammy, but she and I came together about 4 years ago and have formed a company called Prosperity Builders. with our focus on being able to bring workforce housing to communities like Mount Pleasant, Charleston, West Ashley, areas that are basically seeing rents and the price of homes escalating beyond, what the workforce home buyer can afford to rent or to buy. Real quickly, we completed our first community, I think a little over a year ago. We brought 36 workforce townhomes to Mount Pleasant. That was very much supported by Mount Pleasant Town Council. It required a rezoning for some additional density, that nasty D word. And actually they gave us close to 20 units to the acre, and we were able to develop 36 townhomes that all, as you can imagine, were pre-sold, and there was so much more demand than supply. And so we're excited to be under construction, as Ms. Shaw Johnson said, on our second community in West Ashley. Based on the success we had in Mount Pleasant, the master developer of Point Hope approached us a couple years ago and asked, would there be a possibility for us to be able to bring some workforce homes to the new Point Hope development community on Clements Ferry Road, of which we said we would be most interested in. So we've reached an agreement with the master developer to purchase property within the Point Hope development. We are in the early stages of going through the TRC process, but big picture, our goals are to bring 150 newly constructed 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath townhomes to Point Hope, of which all 150 are going to be income restricted to households that earn no more than between 80 and 120% of the area median income. And our goals are to bring 50 of those that earn no more than 80, 50 no more than 100, and 50 no more than 120. So we have been in discussions with Ms. Shaw Johnson for several years on just trying to brainstorm how we potentially could partner with the city of Charleston to help the city meet any kind of objectives they have on workforce housing, and of course us being able, frankly, to be able to pencil bringing workforce housing. So far, we're not seeking any grants. We privately funded the Mount Pleasant opportunity. The West Ashley opportunity, we have a loan through the CRC, as Ms. Shaw Johnson said, but actually we are repaying that loan as down payment assistance. And so that loan is being recycled in a way that there's actually a good chance that the CRC will actually be able to recoup, a portion of the loan that they granted to us to be able to use for future workforce opportunities. So we had been in some discussions about a potential of trying to figure out a way, could we build some new construction that we potentially would sell to the city at a cost that would be either at or below what our cost would be, and then the city actually have some units that they would own that the city could decide to resell, could decide to rent. And so we have formulated an opportunity that basically says we think there's a way that we could sell to the city 20 brand new constructed townhomes out of this 150, townhome community that would be workforce. And we would be committed to delivering those townhomes to the city at a total cost of no more than $250,000 per townhome. And what we would be asking in exchange is we would be asking for a loan equal to the amount of those 20 townhomes, which would be $5 million. That loan would be used solely for impact fees, hard costs for infrastructure. And then once we've completed all of the infrastructure and the vertical costs, we in turn would deliver to the city 20 completed townhomes at $250,000 each to repay our loan. So this presentation that we put together outlines some of the big pictures components of that. The slide that I just pulled up right now shows the location of Point Hope as it relates to the overall Charleston community, which I think everybody's familiar with. Our company does workforce and first-time home buyer, new construction, and then we actually do active adult and senior living construction. And right now we have 5 different communities either completed or at some part of construction in Charleston, with Point Hope being our 6th community. I think most everyone's familiar with Point Hope, and the slide that we have up now is an overall representation of what's close to 120 acres with 6 different communities that we have presently under contract in the Point Hope area. And out of these 6 communities, we're wanting to set aside, and I don't know if you can see my cursor, but we're wanting to set aside one of the 6 communities to be 150 workforce for sale townhomes. And to give everybody somewhat of a bearing, this is Clements Ferry Road. This is the existing light where the Publix is, and this is the Publix grocery store shopping center. So you can see one of our communities is proposed to be on the south side of Clements Ferry, and then the other 5 communities would be on the north side. Again, I think everybody's very familiar with the community. So this slide really just tries to summarize. We propose to do 150 for sale workforce townhomes restricted to 80 to 120% AMI buyers. We would place a 99-year deed restriction that would restrict when they resold. They would have to be sold to buyers that earned no more than 80% of the area median income at that time. And there would be a mechanism that the resale price would be limited as well for 99 years, which would be primarily a function of what they paid for the townhome, plus annual CPI increases, plus any improvements that they've made to their townhome. So, you know, we're thinking market value for new construction townhomes in this area are probably high 3s, low 4s to the 600s. We would propose to deliver 20 to the city at $250 at cost, and then the remaining 130 we would be building would likely be priced in the $310,000 to $350,000 price range. The product would be very similar to what you see before you now in this screen. We would be proposing the same high quality finishes that we did at Gregory Ferry and Mount Pleasant, and that we will be doing in West Ashley with 9-foot ceilings, granite countertops, etc. And I think, Ms. Shaw Johnson, this can be shared with the committee after the presentation, that work. But you can see this is the floor plan. It's a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath. Actually has a primary bedroom on the main floor. So, you know, not only would you think in this corridor you'd have a lot of young people or young families that would be attracted, but this also, if you've got retirees with being able to live on the ground floor, this product potentially would have a broad range of potential buyers. We thought you might enjoy seeing this slide in the future. This is just a little quick math of when we're in development and are ready to build new home construction. These 7 knobs, if you will, are the knobs that kind of add up to what the cost is of the product. Because at the end of the day, what we're striving to do to be able to bring market-based workforce homes for sale is we're striving to how efficiently can we build them. So we think, you know, council and the committee may have an interest in kind of seeing what are the pieces and parts of why it's so difficult to bring workforce homes to the community from a private sector perspective. And then the next slide begins to talk about the highlights of what we'd be proposing, some of the more details, and then benefits of the private-public partnership. So with that, I'll take a breath and see if there are any questions or any of the slides that would be helpful for me to go back to for us to look at in more detail.
Thank you very much for that presentation. It's very interesting. Do we have any questions? I can't see everyone, so we can, if you have it, just raise your hands up.
Sorry, I'm still not sure about that.
No questions? I missed something. Okay, there it goes. I can see everyone now. Mr. Mayor?
So I would just have a question for Ms. Shaw Johnson or Finance if they're on the call, and ask about the source of the funding if we were able to proceed with this for the loan. Of course, eventually we get the houses and we could sell them and get our money back.
Yes, sir, Mayor. A few months ago, we presented to the City Committee of City Council the prospect of a 108 loan where we could garner between 4.3 and 4.5 million. And so we plan within the next 30 days or so, probably 45, I'm looking at Rebecca, to bring that back to Ways and Means and City Council. That would be an avenue by which we could actually purchase these units. Because the price point that Tony and Tammy are willing to sell us these units at are much lower than what we encounter currently, just because of everything that's going on in the market. So it is a below market price that would serve us well if we're able to secure those. So that's our plan currently.
Well, that sounds like that could work. And Mr. Chairman, let me just thank Tony and Tammy for their partnership with us on the Point Verona or the West Ashley development. To hear of a private developer say that they're working on a 150 units, townhomes for sale that are going to be 80 to 100% AMI. I don't know about y'all, but I'm hearing music in these ears. That sounds pretty good. Thank you.
All right. I think Councilman Gregory, you had your hands up.
Yeah, just quick question on the 108 loan guarantee. The fact that we can probably sell these units means that we can probably pay that loan guarantee off pretty quickly, right?
Yes, sir. So we can. They don't like when you prepay, but it would certainly allow us to sit that money in an account and pay as we needed to, and then also use it for other projects as we pay it back. So we could look at a couple of different ways.
Okay, thank you.
I think
And it's in, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And it's in the packet, as you know, as they say, the devil's in the details. And so we've tried to, in what you'll be able to review, try to anticipate things like what you just asked, which leads to, well, when would you deliver the townhomes as far as repaying the loan? So this one, would fit, as we understand it, under the city's expedited review under the affordable housing. So, and we've worked real closely and will continue to work very closely with staff. The good news is that another music to your ears is this is not in a special protection area. It's high land, it's good sandy soils. And so, a lot of the stormwater matters that, we have to address depending on where we develop. We won't have the extent of that. This property is already zoned for the proposed use. And so probably the thing that will lead to the timing is there is a large regional pump station that's going to have to be built to serve the first 250 acres of Point Hope North. And so we're anticipating our goals are to close on the property and potentially close on the loan in January, permit ready. We're anticipating up to 48 months to get all the infrastructure in, to get this regional pump station in and built and commissioned and operational. So you'll see that in the packet, we would be looking for a 48-month loan. I think we're proposing to deliver 10 units in, I think it's 36 months, and then the remaining 12 and 48. But the critical path for that project, frankly, will be how long it takes to get that pump station built and operational so we can complete construction and, as they say, be able to flush potties, which is important in our business.
And Mr. Chairman, the only other thing that I was going to add is that what I think makes this development unique too is that all of the families that live here will have access to the full amenities for Point Hope, right? So there's no isolation or anything like that. The people that live there will have access to all of that. And then the other thing that I would say is one of the things that I'm proudest of with our team is that we do approach non-traditional marketing opportunities to ensure there's diversity. For example, for Bermuda Point, It's not even in the multiple listing service yet. We've done community events. We've had information events on Bermuda Point. And so one of our other commitments is to make sure that this opportunity with 150 townhomes is available to the entirety of Charleston that meets the income requirements.
Thank you for that. Thank
Sure.
you. Councilwoman Wilson, I think you had your hands up. Councilwoman Wilson? Oh,
Councilmember
I mean,
Parker.
Parker, Caroline Parker. Oh, my mind is going. Councilwoman Parker, you had your hands up? No? Okay. My mind is.
Councilmember Waring has his hands up.
Okay, I didn't see it. Councilwoman Waring? I think you're muted.
Thank you. I think it's a great concept, but the sticky point obviously is the pump station. How much, do you have an estimate of what that pump station is going to cost?
We do. We're finalizing agreement that actually Charleston Water will pay for it. This pump station is part of a much larger agreement with the master developer of Point Hope to provide sewer to the north. However, we have to front a portion of the money and then get reimbursed for it. But it's in the neighborhood of $1.5 million to $2 million pump station.
And Charleston Water Systems will build it?
We will actually have to build it. We are right now, we're actually designing it. We've already submitted plans to Charleston Water. We're in the process of waiting for comments back, but we'll plan it, we'll permit it, we'll build it, and then get reimbursed by Charleston Water after it's placed in service.
Okay. Yeah, that's the part that I saw was sticky. But I think this concept is just great. I appreciate you and Ms. Wilson and Ms. Shaw Johnson for even bringing this before us. Let me ask this: if you took the same concept, and let's just say, let's say the city had a tract of land that you could put these townhouses on that already had the infrastructure to the property line. Could that same concept, if you go back to your sheet that showed, and I appreciate that very much, breaking down the cost from land costs to infrastructure cost per unit and vertical cost per unit. Yeah, I thought that was really transparent in putting that up. So for example, if the city owned land, or the school district for that matter owns land, what should they do? County owns land. It would remove the unit cost for land if that land again were contributed. And if the utility fees, this is pretty much going into virgin land, Mr. So if you had water and sewer to the property line, that would be greatly reduced potentially. I'm just taking the concept another further. If you didn't have to buy land and land were given, it could be a win-win on all sides. Maybe even increase the profit margin for you all. By the same token, bringing in a unit cost, at a very attractive price. If you didn't have land costs and you didn't have extensive utility.
Sure. Councilman Warren, can everyone see my screen again?
Yeah,
I can see it.
Yeah, we can see it.
So what you'll find out, the land typically is, as in this analysis shows, the land is typically, 10%-ish, can be as low as 5, can be as much as 15 to 20. But when you look at what adds up, the land is not a large component. What we've learned as really land developers, from the day we look at a piece of property to the day, we call it being from trees to keys, from you just originally look at something, do I think I want to do something here, to finishing it. Our due diligence checklist probably has 100 items. And what you've got to do from our perspective, to really be able to bring something to the market at a price below what the market's showing you can be done, it's not any one thing. It's not any two things. It's 10 or 12 or 15 things.
Mm-hmm.
The number 5, the vertical hard costs, that's probably the one thing that you can do the least with, because vertical construction is just what vertical construction is. So if you're trying to deliver product at around 250 and you know your vertical is 175, that only leaves you $75,000 to do all the other things you see on here,
Right.
of which each of those 7 items has 10 or 20 items below there. So the answer to the question is maybe, possibly. We're having to pay at Point Hope, we're having to pay the full Charleston water impact fees that are close to, I think they're right around $9,000 a door. So, and you have to pay those fees up front the day you can't get signed, stamped, approved plans to go build until you pay those impact fees. And at that $250 a door, we're baking in us paying those impact fees because we have to pay them before we start construction. This is a very unique opportunity that the master developer was willing to sell us the money below land. So I can tell you, we're paying less than $25,000 a door for the land. Most of the entitlements are already there. So we just got to get through the TRC process. DRB is all handled through Point Hope, not through, the city channels. We've got a much larger community that we can spread out the infrastructure cost and the utility costs over like 800 units. And so really being able to focus on this 150 and then even being able to focus on the 20, we've got a scale that allows us to really move some knobs that it's very beneficial to us. That $5 million helps us not have to go out and borrow $5 million. It helps us not have to raise $5 million. It is a needle mover, and then to know we can immediately transfer those to the city when it's done. That is a meaningful savings to us in the overall project. But if there ever was a desire to dive in deeper to this slide, it's no magic. It's all an Excel spreadsheet that either adds up to what you want it to add up to or not.
Right.
But we'd be interested in looking at anything.
Look, I just think great concept. Thank you for bringing it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Is it possible that we can get a copy of some of these slides?
Yes, sir. I think
Okay.
Tony said he would get a copy of it for, I'll make sure the clerk of council's office gets it, Councilmember Mitchell, and passes it on.
Thank you. So I can go over it myself.
And Councilwoman Parker has her hand up, sir.
Oh, Councilwoman Parker. Sorry about that, Councilwoman Parker.
No, that's okay. I just put it up. Thank you, Ms. Johnson, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. I first want to say, this sounds too good to be true. That's what I was thinking at first, especially with Ms. Johnson telling me a few days ago that our average cost, we look at about $350,000 a unit. So this is great. So I want to say that first, that this is, in my time here, what you've done, this is incredible. But I do want to play devil's advocate a little and just sort of a nagging question. So, and I also have, more to learn about the affordable housing process and all of this. Ms. Johnson knows. But so when these properties sell, so when someone purchases these units, are there deed restrictions on when they can sell or how long they have to stay or things like that? So I guess my question is, have we brought in, CTAR or any realtor, any divisions of the the Association of Realtors? I'm just curious, because when folks are buying below market and then your neighbor is paying full market value, what ultimately, they could, we could turn around and, you're creating obviously, an investment in some cases, but I'm just curious if that has ever come up or ever been a thought. I think, am I making sense? So if your neighbor, they may make the same amount of money, right? That your neighbor lives 4 houses down and they didn't know about this unit or they didn't hear about, or they don't know. So they're buying it at, let's say, cost $350. Like you said, it could range from, a similar unit could go for $350 or close to $400. But this particular unit, these 20 units are going to sell for $250. What's that dynamic? Have we ever had that conversation?
Yes, I mean, we had that conversation very early on with Gregory Ferry and Bermuda Point, because we wanted to go to the appraisal community first, because the bottom line is they've got to be able to get a mortgage, and to get a mortgage, they got to be able to appraise. And so the appraisal community views a deed restriction as an effect on value. And so we ran into zero issues at Gregory Ferry with any of the units priced differently being appraised differently. And frankly, our goals are no one knows who's making what. I mean, if the community, if we succeed, unless you ask your neighbor what your neighbor makes, and I guess you can probably go back and look and see what they priced them at. But from our perspective, there's no concern for appraisal. And then we actually utilize Carolina One new home sales. We use, the largest privately owned seller of new homes in Charleston. And right now on our West Ashley community, with no marketing whatsoever, we have pre-sold 80% AMI, we've pre-sold 100% AMI, and we have a list of people waiting to be able to go to contract on 120 and market rate. So the front end side of being able to appraise, and does the buyer community and the local broker community, can they understand and get through this? The answer is absolutely yes. Our purchase and sale agreement's a little more complex than a standard, bar purchase and sale agreement. And it clearly spells out, if you're buying an 80% AMI unit, that deed restriction lasts for, we did 75 years in Mount Pleasant. I think we did 99 years in Bermuda Point, West Ashley, proposing to do 99 years here. It clearly spells out that when you get ready to sell, you've got to contact Ms. Shaw Johnson's office. Okay. And Ms. Florence is going to go through and tell you what you're going to sell it for. And she's going to tell you how much money that person that's going to buy it can make. And then you can decide to work with the city on selling it. You can decide to list it with a broker and sell it. All those options are there. Whether the city chose to sell their 20 for $250, we're so interest rate sensitive, and the 80% AMI buyer, needless to say, is the hardest. And one reason to tell you why it may sound too good to be true, but why would we do this? The 50, 80% AMI are going to be the hardest. The 100 and the 120, with where those incomes are, the market can afford in the 300s to buy those. But if you're an 80% AMI buyer, you're going to need to have, as they say, a two handle on what your acquisition price is. And so if the city, by buying 20 and loaning us money, can take those 20, have those 20 targeted as 20 of the 50 AMI, now we're solving for 30 of the 80 AMI. And believe it or not, providing that is a lot easier for us than having to provide all 50. The other thing is we've got 3 key lenders that through their Community Reinvestment Act totally know you got to look at this differently. And one of our key lenders, United Community Bank, they have a balance sheet mortgage product for just the 80% AMI buyer. That's 100% financing, 30-year P&I fixed, no PMI, and the rate is normally 25 to 50 basis points below market. And really the buyer, they have to have a 670 on their credit score, and their ratios have to work out. But we had a number of our Gregory Ferry 80% buyers utilize that, and that's a balance sheet product that UCB keeps on their own books. And even where rates are today, we've got 3 pre-qualified 80% buyers without even trying. So it's probably beyond this call, and we'll talk all day long if you folks want to hear all the different knobs it takes. But we think we've got a kind of interesting mousetrap here, and would love to have an opportunity to shoulder with the city on this opportunity in Point Hope.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, one more follow-up. Thank you for clarifying that. That helps a lot, and it's incredible. Ms. Johnson, do you know what percentage of that, so even on these units and on the ones in West Ashley that I think he said they're about 80% sold, do we know how many, city employees or workforce teachers, those type of numbers are we pulling in that 80%?
I do not know, and Florence is not on this call. We did a couple of special events for City of Charleston employees at the library across the street from our offices. We had Friday lunch and learns is what we call them, because we wanted to give additional attention or additional opportunity to City of Charleston employees. I can certainly get you those numbers, Tammy. I don't know if you know. I know Florence has been working very closely with the realtors that Tammy and Tony have on their team, but I think it's a combination. I'm just not sure of the City of Charleston employee number at this point, but I'm glad to get that back to you.
Okay, yeah, I was just curious, again, on this project moving forward, will we be focusing some of those marketing efforts? And I think you answered that, yeah, on our city employees. Well, thank you. And I second, Councilmember Waring, I think your wheels were turning. I know mine were. Where else would you like to do this? Right?
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilman Gregory?
Yeah, I thought that was a great question. So those units will remain affordable for 99 years, if I heard you correctly. And this is for Ms. Shaw Johnson. So will the financing be similar to what we do in Longborough? For instance, in Longborough, if there's a gap, okay, generally the city would fill the gap in terms of financing. And if they do decide to sell during a certain period, that gap financing would have to be paid back. Am I correct?
So how we've structured our first-time home buyer under the current iteration, if there's a gap, we're hoping that it's not, because we're getting
right
on these units. But if there is, we set aside down payment assistance every year within our budget. I don't think we did it this year because we have some left from prior year to help fill those gaps. And to Tony's point, if we're having to fill a gap, it'll likely be for our 80% buyers. And normally what happens is, because we have a specific formula we use for these buyers when they sell. Tony mentioned CPI under our first-time home ownership initiative. It is based on the increase in either CPI or AMI. And so usually that allows the buyer to get some level of return. Any money that the city has invested is literally transferred to the subsequent buyer. So
Yes.
Ours doesn't come out. It stays in as what we call permanent subsidy.
Okay.
I think that answers your question.
I think it does.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. We had a very good discussion. Do have any other questions? Any other questions?
I do, Mr. Chairman. I think we can start charging you overtime. I just saw you last Thursday, and we're ready again today.
I'm trying. I'm working hard. Well, if we don't have any other questions, I'd like to thank you all, and Tony and Tammy, for coming and doing this presentation. It was a lot of information that we received, and we're going to take this under consideration very seriously, because we here at the city is very, very interested in as many affordable housing that we really sought for the community, because we need it. Things have changed so much, and the price wise is, I couldn't see it. I couldn't, right now that people couldn't buy houses here, but with that formula that we are using, that could even permit them to be able to buy houses and stay on the peninsula. As long as we can keep it diverse and keep it that way, that would show a great deal. And with the model that way, that the model can be transferred someplace else. You see, those are things I look at very seriously. So if we don't have any, there's no other business.
Well,
No.
Was this?
Are we voting?
A motion on the floor?
No,
Right.
we don't have a motion. There's not going to be a motion on this.
It's
It's
just,
not?
it's just information.
This is only for a presentation.
realize
for
that.
information. This is for information. So
Right.
this will be coming. We'll be hearing more and more, but this is only for information right now.
Oh, great.
Thank you very much. If we don't have any other business,
Except to say that, we really need to thank our housing department in continuing to come up with creative methods of providing affordable housing to the 80 and 100%. I mean, they've been doing a phenomenal job. And I just think that we need to say thank you. Thanks.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
so much.
Thank you very much, Deanna, and your staff. I know you work hard trying to do it, but thank you very much. We're going to keep trying. We're going to continue doing it. Thank you very much.
All right.
Councilwoman Parker, I think I see your hands up.
Yeah, I think you were just about to adjourn, but I was just curious. At a previous meeting, we had discussed ATAX, and I had asked about, sending something up to Columbia about bringing more ATAX money back. I don't think anyone from legal's on, but could we maybe bring that up for discussion in a upcoming meeting at some point?
Yes, we can do that. I'll ask Ms. Johnson to try to contact whomever is going to do it, and we can try to bring that back up to the next meeting.
And I may, Councilmember Gregory, not to put you on the spot, but does it need to come to a different committee if we're talking about using ATAX for other things as well? But Councilmember Gregory, I'm putting you on the spot, but if you remember my conversation, it's about, we had initiated ATAX for coming back to use for, I think, other affordable housing initiatives, but talking about just getting more ATAX money back, to the city. Would that need to go through another committee?
Probably Ways and Means.
Ways and Means, I believe.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, so.
Okay.
Councilmember Mitchell, that is, and I don't know if Rick or the mayor would know. I know it's before the Senate subcommittee at the state legislators approved it, but it's now with the House. Is that correct, Rick?
That's correct. And so there's a good chance that it will be enacted this session that will allow ATAX dollars to be used for workforce and affordable housing.
Okay. So as soon as we hear exactly what happened up in Columbia, then we can kind of get back to it that way.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we're trying to find a time when, and probably one of our early meetings in May, when our Columbia lobbyists can come and make a presentation to council similar to what our DC lobbyists did a month or so ago.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, just so I'm clear with Council Member Parker's question, I think it goes beyond the use of dollars for affordable housing. I understand her question as whether or not we can get an increase in the allocation of ATAX money. Am I correct, Councilmember Parker?
Yes, that's why I said it may not be appropriate for this committee.
Right.
Maybe I need to,
I do understand your question. Thank you too.
Okay, we'll take that in consideration and get clarification on it to make sure where we're going, if it's going to be an increase or whatever, so we can have a clarification. I think Councilman Waring?
Yeah, just to follow up on Ms. Parker, I guess I'm gonna pick Council Member Ross Appel's brain. So I keep mixing up the Act number, but Act 234 or 236.
36.
We're 236. Thank you. We're fee income. My understanding that Greenville actually has a city fee on hotel rooms. I think there's been some discussion around that, but in what environment is going to be the Community Development Committee, or what committee should eventually strike out on this 236 to see what's going to be our strategy to kind of employ something and move it beyond just conversations to hopefully steps we can act. Is it
probably still in the ad hoc committee?
Right.
Budget committee?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. Ad hoc committee budget.
Yeah, that would be under that, I believe.
But I, like you, Council Member Waring, I'm a little tired of talking about it and ready to start sort of figuring out what we can or can't do under 236.
Well, some of these cities are already getting revenues from it.
I know.
Still talking.
I know. I mean, with 8 million visitors coming, I still think $10 is a whole lot of money if we can figure out where to put that fee.
So when's that ad hoc committee supposed to meet again on that?
Not sure. We can talk to Amy
Right.
and have maybe a special ad hoc committee meeting just on fees. To me,
Isn't Councilmember Appel chairman of that?
well, leave him
I so
alone.
moved, man. I so moved.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm just kidding.
are y'all seriously wanting me to be the chairman of that?
Yeah, I do on that. Yeah.
I mean, let's roll.
All right.
We're gonna
We'll
form
get
a
it.
subcommittee
Yeah, we're good.
on 236 and put Councilmember Appel in charge of it.
If there's
I
your
think
motion, I
that's-
move approval.
I second the motion.
Oh,
Pressure's on, pressure's
That's
on.
right. That's right.
Let's do it. I
Yeah.
can't wait.
We'll be
I got
working
all
on
kinds of
all those
ideas.
things.
Okay.
But we'll be working on all those things and try, as soon as possible. But if we don't have
So-
any,
So we put it on the ad hoc committee agenda and then do subcommittee work accordingly.
We will. I'll do
Okay.
that.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
Yes,
Thanks,
sir.
Mayor.
yeah,
All right.
it's out of my hands. Okay.
Thank you all.
Any other questions? If
No,
not,
y'all have a great day.
all right,
Thank you.
All right.
stand adjourned.
Bye-bye.
Thank y'all.